In terms of raising kids that are resilient instead of raising kids that are anxious, how does education play a big role in that? That we have kids that think critically, that are self-aware, and we're not raising kids that will end up anxious. Thank you.
I guess anybody can answer the question. Anybody can answer one of the 5 questions you asked. Go ahead, Sandeep.
I'll take two of those questions very quickly. One is, how do you as a parent work with like a tablet that a child has, and they bring homework home, or they are learning sitting in front of a laptop or a tablet and learning? It's really easy as a parent or a teacher to abdicate learning to a device or to a system. The way it's worked for a lot of successful settings is you use the device to learn yourself with your child. If your child you don't teach, you learn through the device. It's an entirely different mindset in how you operate as a parent with your child. If you tell the child, open this Khan Academy video, let me walk you through it, or you watch it and answer this question, you've lost the child. If you open that video and say, oh my God, I missed that concept in high school, let's learn it together, you see your child's reaction to that. I've tried it, it worked. So that's one. Second, from a whole generational issue that you're talking about, I'll give you a visualization of today's Gen Z in the society that we operate in. Walking on the street, heads listening to beats or some music through the music coming into the headset, and the ears are fully covered. Take it back 30 years, somebody's running with a Walkman and the ears are not fully covered. There's a little bit of soft padding, but the sound from the neighborhood gets in. Here, the neighborhood is kept out willfully. It's an example of anxiety that's inside the person, in my opinion, and I'm not a psychologist. But I do believe the social anxiety we've led our children of Gen Z into has to be kept in mind while we design the system for them. And they are more anxious than you and I were at that age, because we felt we had a lot more human interaction than they do. So as we design anything for the future, I totally agree. Children today are way more anxious. So solving for that is not an opportunity that we can come to today, but I would look at those two things as reminders as to how we are looking at a very different workforce of the future.
So let me address this from a higher education perspective, which is where I've sort of been involved in for the last 28 years, as I said. I spoke at a conference. It was actually a debate, and the president of the Oberta, which is the online university in Catalonia in Spain, was heard to say that his dream was that a student should be able to do a 4-year undergraduate degree without leaving their room, which I thought was a nightmare. And I won the debate. At least more people put their hands up. Going to university is about growing up as much as it is about learning. And so I'm actually quite nervous. Here's where I'm in the glass half full camp, because I do see that. I do see that I've got grandchildren, and it worries me that my grandkids will be in this silo where they will be driven to study in a way that I think will not create the relationships and the social being that being a student should be at least as much about as being a learner. So yeah, I do think I agree with Sandeep. We need to be very careful, very balanced, and this is an area where I am slightly concerned.
I agree completely, and I think, again, things are starting to change a little bit. I think for those of us who raised our children, I now have teenagers when they were a little bit younger. I too made the mistake of being able to say, well, that's great, sit down with the iPad and do that so that I have 5 minutes to think. But it has changed quite a bit, and for me, it changed a lot in terms of the basis for what we did with my company. And at Graduation Alliance, we help former high school dropouts get back into school. We are a completely virtual program. And as a completely virtual program, we've actually eliminated the digital divide. We have people who come to us who may come from wealthy families but had medical issues or perhaps drug problems. We have families that are very economically challenged and children that are working 2 or 3 jobs to support their families. Young women who've had children way too early in life and can't go to a regular brick and mortar school with their child. Every one of our students gets a computer. Every one of our students gets internet access. We eliminate the digital divide, and we eliminate any reason whatsoever for them to say, I can't do it. Well, no, you have all the tools now to do it. The difference is that if they have a caring adult in their lives who is sitting down with them and saying, let's do this lesson together, let's keep track, let's see how you're doing. If they do not have somebody in their family who can do that, we provide that person. We provide that coach. And we let them use the tools that they have. Make a video and tell me about the lesson that you just did, and send just a 30-second video. Instead of writing an essay, which, by the way, you just go on to ChatGPT now and pump out 3 or 4 paragraphs, make me a small video and tell me what it is that you learned. That's what our teachers do, that's what our coaches do, and I think more of our school system, more of our educators have to use the technology in a very constructive way. I think, again, there's the potential. Things do have to change.
Okay, thank you. Former Secretary De Jesus.
Thank you. I was very impressed by the eloquent and provocative statements, initial statements of our speakers. And I certainly can find in those statements things I can agree with. For instance, that we have better tools now. But what struck me was that I'm not entirely sure that our speakers completely agree on the basic questions that are in front of us. What is education's promise in a changing world? And while we agree that no one should be left behind, are we agreed on the destination towards which we are heading? And these are, I think, the basic questions that we are still trying to come to grips with. Alan, we are grateful to your forebears who took the first serious effort to educate the indigenous population in a general way. You know? But here, the objective is very simple. They're being educated so that they learn religion and so that they can be saved. Now we're being told, no, we need to educate people so that they have a job when they leave college. And I'm not sure that you guys are agreed on the key points of these 2 questions in front of us.
Well, thank you for being kind about the Spanish. That's very kind of you, because I think we were the world's worst imperialists. So that's extremely kind of you, if I may say a little naive. Yeah, of course, you're right. It's a balance between the two. It is not about getting you a job, but if we get you a job and a good job and put you in a position to succeed at work, so be it. Because that's what I want to do. What I don't want to do is make you unemployable. So that's the opposite extreme. And that's what sometimes we do. We make you unemployable because we either teach you something that nobody wants, or we teach you in such a way that you can't then survive in the world of employment. But you're absolutely right. It goes way, way beyond that. It's about, as I said before, it's about socialization. It's about growing up. It's about becoming a proper human being, or being on a journey to become a proper human being. So I agree with you. And I don't think any of us would disagree with that. Or I hope not.
No, this is a very powerful question. Maybe I've gone off, but I'll give a very controversial answer, because it's easy to give a non-controversial answer, but this is a safe space, more or less. Let's take this argument to infinity, the argument of education and equity. Equity is not equality, right? Equity in that role, equal access or equitable access is a starting point. Then quality, equitable quality beyond that defines completion of equity. In a true public good setting where, what's the definition? The addition of the next person into that system doesn't displace a previous person, which means it has an infinite capacity to absorb the next person and the next person and the next person without the marginal cost of the addition of that person displacing the system or breaking the system down. Then the infinity argument leads to the fact that education will be available to everybody free of cost, equitably. I'm aiming for that. Even as a private equity fund, that is my North Star. What does that mean? I am putting myself out of a job in a perfect situation. And that's what I want the entire world to do. To put ourselves out of a job so that the public system takes over and equitably makes available education for all learners in that system. Very, very hard to achieve in budget constraints, in regional constraint situations. So we exist as private providers of capital to enable equity ultimately. So I think it is super important that we solve at any given time in a system that is socially so important for effectiveness and equity, not for efficiency. And that remains a challenge because we have shareholders, we have parties that we need to answer to, but that's a worthy challenge to maintain, a good balance to maintain until we reach the infinity and then everybody has free access, whenever that occurs, in our lifetime or in 5 lifetimes. So it's a philosophical thought process, but that's why I know I exist, so that I don't have a job in 5 generations, hopefully.
Okay, he's also leading to my unemployment, but anyway. Greg, no, go ahead.
No, these are, it was well stated.
Okay, thank you. Former Secretary Nars.
Yes, I was struck about the statement about the need to educate educators. I'd like to know whether in the Philippines there are such modules because the technology is very fast, changing very fast, and our teachers, I don't think, have kept up with it. Are there any models that you can discuss?
So I'm the last person to answer that question because I don't know enough about the Philippines, but I can tell you that around the world, there is this consciousness that teaching the teacher is something that's critical, and in certain places it's being done. We, for example, the company I used to work at, Laureate Education, we had a very significant program for teachers that was upskilling them, for want of a better word, to address the current needs. I cannot speak to the Philippines. I don't really know what's going on in that space. Maybe Chito, you can answer that.
But maybe specifically though, are there, because I know that the issue that Nars talking about was AI, especially technology. Are there models of educating educators in mass anywhere in the world on AI and the latest tools? I don't know if...
In mass, I'm not sure. I think it's quite local. And I think it's also something that's a bit of a ground game. Teachers often, certainly I see this in the United States, I mean, teachers want to see what other teachers are doing and want them to be able to share what their tips are, what their skills are, how they're starting to thrive with their classrooms. I don't see a lot of institutional programs that are coming up. I'll say that, but then also say I also do some teaching at the University of Utah in Salt Lake City, and the Teachers College there is absolutely changing their curriculum so that the next generation of teachers are starting to learn, and they're trying to put that curriculum out there into continuing education so that existing teachers are able to avail themselves of those tools. But many teachers really want to be able to see what their fellow teachers are doing.
And I've also seen that in the US. I've also seen it in a couple of European countries where teachers are coming back to school in order to be upskilled in terms of the utilization of AI, which is, both of my colleagues have said, AI is a tool. It's not the be-all and end-all, and therefore teachers need to understand how to utilize that tool.
So I think just quickly examples that you can refer to in your time. Companies that have done well by teaching, by not teaching, are the better companies by creating communities. Companies that have created teacher communities are examples such as teacherspayteachers.com. So if you look at their core business model, it's saying if I have a lesson plan as a teacher in a particular school district and I make it available and you as another teacher of a school district want to buy that, you can pay for it. So that real-time practical sort of exchange of lesson plans and ideas and thoughts, and that's built a very, very sort of active community, and that's been a great idea platform. Other companies that have done a good job in creating such platforms and communities win. Like there's a company that does a lot of school management, Power School in the US, another one that does power school management called ManageBack. But a company that's beating them both now, rising sharply, is focused on teacher community. So in my opinion, teacher communities teach themselves. That company is called Toddle, Toddle. So there are movements we are seeing away from didactic top-down to peer-to-peer learning and community-based learning, which are more scalable. But how is that going to work in a Filipino environment? I don't know, but it's very possible. And we've shown it at FINMA Education how to reach out to communities using free technology. So I think it's possible. It's a matter of designing it.
We always grapple that issue, Ma'am Naris, about whenever you tell something, oh, you need to use AI in school or AI in your work or Excel in your work, the next question is there a training program? Is there a class on how to do this? And yet everybody taught themselves how to use Facebook. If there's enough drive, they actually teach themselves how to use these things. But if suddenly it's ordered by the boss, then they ask for a class. Okay, I was about... can I first call... former Secretary De Jesus Del Rosario, and then former Undersecretary Nene Guevara? Or would you, okay, I guess we can be...
I can yield to Nene first.
So why don't we ask, because we can only take maybe 2 more questions, so I'll take Nene first, and then we'll go to Sir Ramon.
My boss, Sir Ramon, will probably not forgive me for asking this question because you're in higher education. But I work with very poor communities, and I think it's very hard for many children to go to higher education. And probably the best that they can reach would be high school. So you're saying that it's very important for them to know livelihood and skills would be primordial for me. So I would really look at AI as a help to enable them to learn livelihood skills because they may never get to college despite the scholarship of Sir here. Thank you.
It's more of a statement, ma'am, or did you want to...
No, I'm really asking Sandeep the possibility of using AI so that these children who may never reach college will learn livelihood skills. And these are in very poor communities.
I can imagine that world a little bit, not too well, but I suppose the answer is in essentially skilling for what? You can't come up with, in any uncertain situation, a set of technical skills which will assure livelihood. But you can assure a better chance at livelihood by teaching what we call soft skills, human skills, and really focusing deeply on them. But we've got to start first with basic literacy and numeracy. So I would really focus on basic literacy and numeracy, solve for that. Second, I'd solve for belonging, a sense of confidence. I'd solve for, I have a future. Without a college, I'll have an okay future. Those things are to be taught. They are not easily understood without being taught. So I would make them as important modules of education as it is to really code, and then give them the confidence that they can learn, ultimately. If you can teach a person that they are good learners, and that's a skill you can actually teach, then they will learn. You don't have to teach them after that. AI enables access to knowledge, so it flattens the knowledge barrier. Then they're no longer worried about being equally knowledgeable about historical that we all spew out so easily because we had access. Now there is access. The next is practice, perseverance. We can teach that. Hope, we can teach that. So things that we thought were part of a family structure, hope comes when you have a strong family. If you don't have a strong family, your hope dies faster. How do you teach that? I think you can. I do believe, and that's the optimist part. I've seen it occur in my mother's affordable private school growing up, where those children were my tutees. And her biggest challenge was to retain teachers, because they all kept getting married. So beyond that, we were able to solve for it. So I think redefining what you're teaching for entirely differently from what the world tells you should be taught in that local context is so critical. And not being afraid of that sort of step you took to teach something entirely differently. And that is a very good start, in my opinion.
Thank you. Sir.
Let me start with a clarification, and I'm not sure I understood Sandeep accurately. But I thought your description of your ideal world is one where you're out of a job, because there's no more role for private education, because the state is doing such a good job of providing universal education in an equitable way. But that implies that, in your view, there is no real role for private education. And I would like to argue that there is, in fact, a role for private education. And there are some aspects of education I think that the private sector would probably do a better job in doing, regardless of whether the state is providing education or not. Obviously, some religious educational institutions provide elements of morality and principle, et cetera, or business-oriented schools might have a better grasp of what industry needs, et cetera, et cetera. So the only point I'm making is, I don't think the ideal world is one where all education is provided by the state. I think there is a permanent role for private education. I'm not sure I understood you properly.
Maybe before Sandeep answers, because I suspect, sir, that Alan will echo what you want to say.
I'd like to say something after Sandeep on this subject, of course, yes.
So I think this is a very one-sided conversation I took, very sort of one-sided view I took to make a point. Ideally speaking, if the public sector could solve for innovation, equity, growth, employability, all of it, equitably, then nobody needs to be providing anything. But that's not happened ever since thousands of years. So private education has existed, and we wrote a little chapter on it published by the ADB 4 years ago. And this is the position we ultimately took, that private sector has existed, will exist, and needs to exist. But that's a very practical thought process. The stack I took earlier had to do with a pure idealism devoid of every other possibility. That's never practical. So I agree with you entirely. I'm not, and I'll send you that chapter when you get a chance, because it goes into the historical context of individual one-to-one schools and one-to-many schools that were privately funded, even in the days when the tax collections outweighed any kind of public spending. So it's therefore not a matter of public spending or the allocation of it. It's a matter of what relevance does the private sector add so that the public sector can keep improving and catching up. That's practical. Idealistically, it'll never occur, but hopefully one day it'll be so beautiful, then all of us can be public servants. But that's another chance.
So I'm obviously invested in agreeing with you, Don Ramon, and that's what I've been doing for the last 28 years. I'll give you an example. So I went to India, his home country, and I visited an institution that worked on the model that they were linked to a public, they were private, but they were linked, this happens a lot in India, they were linked to a public institution. They were teaching, but they were offering the public institution's degree, which is a result of which they had to give the public institution's curriculum. So I'm sitting having lunch, and the gentleman to my left happened to be the dean of the Information Technology School, who told me that he was still teaching COBOL. So I'm not a technologist, but as I understand it, COBOL probably died 20-odd years ago, but he was still teaching it because the public institution was still teaching it, and therefore he had to still teach it. I would argue obviously I'm biased, but I would argue that the private sector has been and will continue to be the primary engine of change and evolution, because I live in Dubai, and so there are a lot of oil tankers stationary outside where I live, and public institutions are like oil tankers. They're really difficult to maneuver, whereas private institutions, not all, but private institutions are sufficiently more flexible, more mobile, because they have to be. They address a need. If something's free, you have a different relationship with something that you're paying for. You suddenly become a consumer, your parents become consumers, and your demands of that entity, of that institution change. So, but as I say, I'm obviously biased in that regard.
Okay, we need to end, but to end this, let me throw two last questions, kind of summarize everything. Now, just to make sure we're short, I won't ask you to answer in yes or no, but I will ask you to try to keep your answer in one sentence. In one sentence. Not a run-on, multiple clause, semicolon sentence, okay? The first one is I actually disagree with, maybe it just wasn't as clear, but with the observation of Secretary De Jesus, former Secretary, because there was a lot of elements in what they believed was the end. One is, as they said, there is a degree of responsibility that the end must include employability, that there must be work skills. The issue of the shareholders must, in this day and age, there must be greater interaction in the stakeholders, of an education system. That's government, private sector, families, industry, etc. There's also the importance of equity, that there is importance that there must be a consciousness of equity. And I think what is common to everybody, whether it be employability, whether it be AI, that at the center of all of this must be the human spirit. That everything must be built around the human spirit and ultimately lead to the development of the human spirit. So let me ask you the first question. The first question is a little bit more directed to the topic. Is Finland, one of the top, I think it's Finland, right? Top education systems in the world, removed completely from basic education, elementary, the use of computers. Because they found that EdTech has not helped or moved the needle. So let me ask you, similar to what Joyce's question is, in this day and age, can we actually envision a school that does not integrate AI at all, maybe in the early years? Is that like an option in this day and age, that we can exist that way? What do you think?
Yes, we can, but we must be extraordinarily careful as to when you start to bring the technology to the table.
It's a process. It's not a question of yes or no. In this case, it's yes and no. Sorry. It's a process. It's when you introduce it and how you introduce it, which is even more important. So you can't sorry, it's not a sentence. You can't overload too soon, but you can't just leave people bereft of it forever.
Okay, thank you. Sandeep?
Yes, I think you can create a system where you don't bring AI in teaching, learning, pedagogy on a daily basis, and you can actually achieve a lot of basic outcomes, particularly cognitive strength. That's great, but it depends on what you're solving for. If you're solving for access and you're starting at 0, you want to take everybody to 1, not to 100, then 0 to 1 journey may be a little bit more powerful with some level of AI and enablement, not in the transaction itself. It depends what you're solving for.
Okay, now I have to end by putting on my PBED hat, although I've been in a PBED jacket. PBED is a policy-oriented group, and our goal is achieve a better education system for as many young Filipinos as possible. That's the goal. And we're talking about a system that has about 25 to 29, about 27 million students in the public education, basic education system. About 90% cannot read a simple sentence at the age of 10. That's about 45,000 schools and about 900,000 teachers. If you had to give, I'm asking for a recommendation. One takeaway for us is, how do we make that system a better system? What should you think the government or us as a private sector should do? As a last note, this is what you recommend.
So let me go first. The most important thing, and the thing that's not there right now, is the partnership between the government, industry, and academia. So you're all in, and I say you all, and again, I hasten to add that I'm not in the Philippines, nor do I know enough about the Filipino environment. But globally, the regulator, employers, and universities are not on the same page. And they need to be. They need to be in the same room. They need to be heading in the same direction. And until that happens, now I'm going to go glass half empty, glass half full, glass half empty. Until that happens, it's a Sisyphean task. Sisyphean task. You're rolling up a hill and it comes back down again, I'm afraid. Sorry to leave you on that note.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sandy, you want me to go? Literacy and numeracy skills, the most basic skills, when you have a large population who does not have basic literacy and numeracy skills, none of this technology matters. Focus on that.
Thank you.
No, I fully agree with that. That it's solving for local issues, which means most systems today don't work, as Alan said, because the systems don't talk to each other. So creating that cooperation, designing a future together is critical. And disagreement is very important, so you can agree ultimately on how you're going to design it. So I see that as a path forward, and having this convening is a very good step, in my opinion, towards seeing and visualizing a future that you can all work towards designing together, and that is super, super important. So that's missing probably from all over the world, and we can bring it more, make it more powerful.
Great. A round of applause, please, for our speakers. I actually like to think that Ramon and I were smiling at each other because the last statements seem to align with a lot of our thinking. The importance of basic, as opposed to higher. The importance of working together and bringing them together, and bring them together to envision the kind of system we want. So again, maybe another round of applause for our guests, and thank you all for also coming. This was also an opportunity for PBED and FINMA to advertise. So just like a YouTube, we will add the commercial. We're selling the jackets for 3,500 pesos. It's that expensive because they have to be brought here through the Straits of Hormuz. And we're also renting out the facility. It's a really nice facility. It just opened this December. If you need a facility, we're cheaper than Makati Shang. So just let us know and we can rent the facility. But again, thank you everyone. We'll just do one picture taking, Sir RR with the speakers. Yes. And then I will just synthesize, and yourself. You too, join us. In front, please. Don't leave yet because there's a group picture, but you can already get off the stage because yes, sir. I'll just wrap this up, and then there'll be a group picture. So please don't leave. That's also my way of keeping you here. Once I wrap it up, the picture will be taken from here, I think, of everyone. So, the World Bank did a study. So they actually give me words. Nobody gets left behind by accident. People will get left behind. No one gets, and exclusion is structural and it's systemic, can be fixed. The World Bank did a study before when they were trying to figure out what to do in the developing world, which seems to have was collapsing everywhere in the third world, in Latin America, etc. And their study basically showed that what is a secret to development? And they said there really is no secret. It's the same thing for every country. It is infrastructure, people, investments, etc., etc. But what makes the difference between countries that are investing in infrastructure, people, the usual better financing, better governance, is not what the investment is, but where it's directed. And the discovery is that the intention must be clear. If the goal is development and alleviation of poverty, the investments must be directed specifically to that. It's not about building a port. or a road, it's about not building, it's not about do we need to build a road, it's about where we put that road. It's not about building a school, schools are important, but where do we put those schools? Where do we put the ports? And it must be directed towards those in the country who need it the most. So a system that is more equitable, that doesn't leave people behind, must be a system that is intentionally designed and targeted towards the sectors of society that need it the most. And I think we heard it from them. We must be guided by that, by providing literacy, by talking together about achieving these things, and hopefully envisioning a world where we are not out of a job, as Sandeep wanted us to be, but we are all working towards a better future. So with that, marami pong salamat sa aming forum sa Philippine Business for Education and for the learning session of FinMA Education. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. So please, just one more photo opportunity. So can I request everyone to stand up, move a bit forward, especially for those at the back. Yes, the picture will be taken from the stage. So please face the stage. Compress po. Move towards the center, please. Thank you so much. And again, would like to thank our sponsors and for this event. McDonald's Philippines, thank you so much. Coca-Cola Philippines, thank you. FinMA Foundation, FinMA Education, and Ma'am Berncy and the C family, thank you so much for your support. And we hope to see you again in our future PBED Leadership Forum. Thank you, thank you.